In the vastness of space, countless civilizations thrived among the stars. Some were ancient, their empires stretching across galaxies, while others were young and still finding their place. Humanity belonged to the latter group. For centuries, humans had dreamed of reaching beyond their home planet Earth. They built ships, explored new worlds, and slowly expanded into the cosmos. But despite their progress, they were often seen as insignificant by the older, more powerful species. The Calith Dominion was one such empire. Known for their arrogance and military might, the Calith viewed humanity as little more than pests, weak, unremarkable, and unworthy of respect. Their leader, Lord Valen, made no effort to hide his disdain. During a meeting of the Galactic Council, an assembly where representatives from various species gathered to discuss interstellar matters, he openly mocked humanity's attempts to establish itself in the galaxy. Ji-un, a young diplomat from Earth, stood quietly as Valen spoke. Her heart raced with anger, but she kept her expression calm and composed. She had been chosen to represent humanity because of her sharp mind and ability to remain cool under pressure. As Valen finished his speech, laughter filled the room. Other delegates joined in, clearly amused by his insults. Ji-un clenched her fists beneath the table but forced herself to smile faintly before stepping forward. "You may think we are weak," Ji-un said, her voice steady and clear. "But history has shown that even the smallest spark can ignite a fire." Her words earned only more laughter. One delegate called out, "What can you possibly do? Build another shipyard?" Another chimed in, "Perhaps they'll send us poems instead of weapons." The mockery continued until Ji-un stepped back, bowing slightly to acknowledge their jeers. Inside, however, she burned with determination. These arrogant beings had no idea what humanity was truly capable of. Back on Earth, far away from the glittering halls of the Galactic Council, Admiral Hyung-soo oversaw operations in orbit around Proxima Centauri. He was a man of few words but immense resolve. Under his command, humanity had secretly constructed an armada, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive starships equipped with cutting-edge technology floated silently in hidden shipyards. Each vessel was designed not just for defense but also for domination. Weapons systems powered by experimental energy sources promised unmatched firepower, while advanced engines allowed unprecedented speed and maneuverability. Hyung-soo knew that humanity could not rely solely on diplomacy to secure its future. While Ji-un worked tirelessly to earn respect through words, he focused on preparing for the day when action would speak louder. "They think we're harmless," Hyung-soo muttered to himself as he stared out at the fleet. "Let them keep thinking that for now." Meanwhile, life went on for ordinary citizens across Earth's colonies. Farmers tilled alien soil, miners extracted precious resources from distant moons, and families settled into their new homes among the stars. Few knew about the secret armada, or the tensions brewing between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. For most people, life was peaceful, or so it seemed. That peace shattered when news arrived of a brutal attack on EOS 7, a small mining colony deep within human-controlled space. A fleet belonging to the Calith Dominion had crossed into the sector without warning and destroyed the settlement. Thousands died in the assault, leaving behind nothing but charred ruins and silent communication channels. Survivors sent desperate pleas for help, but the Galactic Council ignored their cries. To many delegates, the destruction of a human colony was inconsequential, a mere footnote in the grand scheme of galactic politics. When word of the tragedy reached Earth, outrage spread like wildfire. Protesters gathered outside government buildings demanding justice. Families of the victims cried out for answers. Even those who had never ventured beyond Earth felt the weight of the loss. It was clear that something had to be done. Admiral Hyung-soo received the distress signal aboard the Celestial Dawn, humanity's flagship. His face hardened as he watched footage of the devastation. Entire structures had been reduced to rubble, and escape pods lay scattered like broken toys. He turned to Captain Yuna, his trusted second-in-command, and said grimly, "This ends now." Yuna nodded, her jaw tight with determination. Like Hyung-soo, she understood the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just an attack on a single colony, it was an attack on all of humanity. If left unanswered, it would embolden the Calith and others like them to strike again. Orders were issued swiftly. 3 squadrons of warships mobilized, heading straight for EOS 7. Pilots scrambled to their stations, engineers double-checked every system, and commanders reviewed battle plans. Everyone knew what was at stake. This wasn't just a mission. It was a statement. Humanity would not tolerate aggression against its people. As the fleet approached the site of the massacre, sensors picked up signs of lingering enemy activity. A Caliph patrol remained in the area, perhaps to ensure no survivors remained or to claim whatever spoils they could find. When confronted, the Caliph commander sneered over the comms channel. "You dare challenge us? Your pathetic ships are no match for ours," but the Caliph underestimated humanity. From the moment the first shots were fired, it became clear that these weren't the same human vessels they had encountered before. Sleek and agile, the ships darted between the lumbering Caliph cruisers, evading fire with ease. Advanced targeting. Systems locked onto weak points, delivering devastating blows with pinpoint accuracy. Within minutes, the Caliph fleet found itself overwhelmed. Panic spread among the enemy ranks as ship after ship fell to the relentless assault. The Caliph commander screamed orders, trying desperately to regain control, but it was too late. One by one, his vessels exploded into balls of flame, lighting up the void of space. By the time the battle ended, the once proud patrol had been utterly annihilated. News of the victory traveled fast. Across the galaxy, beings who had dismissed humanity as weak and irrelevant suddenly took notice. How could such a supposedly primitive species have developed such advanced technology? And why had they kept it hidden for so long? For Ji-eun, watching events unfold from afar, the triumph was bittersweet. She celebrated the defeat of the Caliph patrol, but mourned the lives lost on EOS 7. Still, she couldn't deny the significance of what had happened. Humanity had proven itself capable of defending its own and willing to do so at any cost, yet the battle was only the beginning. The Caliph would not take this humiliation lightly, nor would their allies. Already, whispers of retaliation echoed through the corridors of power. Humanity had struck a blow, but the war was far from over. On the bridge of the Celestial Dawn, Admiral Hyung-soo stared at the wreckage of the Caliph fleet. Satisfaction flickered in his eyes, but it was fleeting. He knew better than anyone that this victory came at a price. The galaxy had been shaken, but it would not stay silent for long. Humanity had declared itself a force to be reckoned with, but now it had to prepare for the consequences. And so, as the stars twinkled coldly in the distance, humanity stood poised on the brink of a new era. No longer content to simply survive, they were ready to fight for their place among the stars. The victory at EOS 7 sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For centuries, humanity had been dismissed as a minor species, unworthy of attention or respect. But now, whispers of their unexpected triumph spread like wildfire among the stars. Even the most arrogant empires couldn't ignore what had happened. A small patrol fleet of the mighty Caliph Dominion had been utterly destroyed by humans, species they had once mocked as insignificant. On Earth, news of the battle brought both celebration and unease. Families gathered around screens to watch footage of the engagement, cheering as human ships darted between larger enemy vessels, delivering devastating blows with precision. Yet beneath the surface of pride and relief, there was an undercurrent of fear. The Caliph were not known for forgiveness. Retaliation was almost certain, and when it came, it would likely be far worse than anything humanity had faced before. Admiral Hyung-soo understood this better than anyone. As he stood on the bridge of the Celestial Dawn, his eyes scanned the star charts displayed on the main screen. Humanity's colonies stretched across dozens of systems, but they were scattered and vulnerable. If the Caliph launched a full-scale invasion, it would take everything humanity had, and more, to defend them all. "We need reinforcements," Hyung-soo said, turning to Captain Yuna. "Every ship we have must be ready." Yuna nodded, her expression grim. She had already begun coordinating efforts to recall every available vessel from patrol routes and training exercises. Engineers worked around the clock to repair damaged ships and upgrade older models. Factories churned out weapons, shields, and spare parts at unprecedented rates. Humanity was preparing for war, but time was not on their side. Meanwhile, in the glittering halls of the Galactic Council, tensions simmered. Delegates whispered behind closed doors, debating how to respond to humanity's sudden rise. Some called for immediate retaliation, arguing that allowing humans to grow stronger would only lead to disaster. Others suggested diplomacy, urging caution before escalating the conflict further. Among these voices, one name rose above the rest: Tareen, a cunning politician representing the Zarathian syndicate. Tareen was no friend to humanity. He despised their rapid expansion and resented their growing influence in the galaxy. Seeing an opportunity to weaken them, he proposed forming an alliance against Earth. "If we act now, While they are still recovering from their recent victory, we can crush them before they become a true threat, Tareen declared during a private meeting with key council members. His words found fertile ground. The Calith Dominion eagerly agreed, eager to avenge their lost patrol fleet. Other empires, wary of humanity's potential, joined the coalition as well. Together, they formed a massive armada, pooling resources and ships to create a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their goal was simple: to annihilate humanity and erase its presence from the stars. Back on Earth, Ji-un worked tirelessly to counteract the rising tide of hostility. As humanity's representative to the Galactic Council, she knew that diplomacy was their best chance of avoiding all-out war. Yet her task was daunting. Many delegates refused to listen, dismissing her pleas for peace as weakness. Others openly mocked her, claiming humanity's recent victory was nothing more than luck. Despite the setbacks, Ji-un refused to give up. She traveled to neutral worlds, seeking allies who might support humanity's cause. One such world was governed by Chancellor Misjudged, a leader whose people had long suffered under the tyranny of the Caliph and their allies. When Ji-un arrived, she was greeted with skepticism. Misjudged's advisors warned him not to trust her, fearing retaliation from the larger empires if they sided with humanity. But Ji-un was determined. She met with Misjudged in his palace, a grand structure built into the cliffs overlooking a shimmering ocean. As they sat together, she spoke passionately about humanity's struggle for survival. "We are not so different from your people," Ji-un said, her voice firm yet gentle. "We seek freedom, safety, and a chance to build a better future. If we stand united, we can challenge those who seek to dominate us." Misjudged listened carefully, his expression unreadable. For hours they discussed strategy, resources, and the risks involved. Finally, after much deliberation, Misjudged nodded. "Very well," he said. "We will join you, not because we believe you will win, but because we cannot remain silent while others suffer as we once did." With Misjudged's pledge of support, Ji-un gained access to valuable intelligence and supplies. Ships from his fleet joined humanity's growing armada, bolstering their numbers. More importantly, his decision inspired other neutral worlds to reconsider their stance. Slowly but surely, humanity began to gather allies, forging bonds that would prove crucial in the battles to come. While Ji-un worked to secure alliances, Admiral Hyung-soo focused on preparing for the inevitable confrontation. He gathered his commanders aboard the Celestial Dawn for a series of intense strategy sessions. Lieutenant Jun-ho, a brilliant tactician known for his quick thinking, presented detailed simulations of potential battle scenarios. Each plan was scrutinized, refined, and tested until Hyung-soo was confident in their readiness. "Numbers alone won't save us," Hyung-soo reminded his team during one meeting. "Our strength lies in our unity. Every soldier, every engineer, every civilian believes in this fight. That is what will carry us through." As the days passed, reports poured in confirming the formation of the anti-human coalition. Their combined fleet dwarfed humanity's forces, stretching across light years and bristling with weapons capable of leveling entire planets. It was a terrifying sight, even for seasoned veterans like Yuna and Jun-ho. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, morale remained high. Everyone knew what was at stake. This wasn't just a battle for territory or resources, it was a fight for survival. The moment of truth arrived sooner than expected. Early warning systems detected the approaching coalition fleet near the edge of human-controlled space. Countless ships filled the void, their engines glowing like distant stars. Pilots scrambled to their stations, hearts pounding with anticipation. Engineers performed final checks, ensuring every system was functioning perfectly. Commanders reviewed orders one last time, steeling themselves for the chaos to come. Hyung-soo stood on the bridge of the Celestial Dawn, watching as the enemy fleet drew closer. His hands rested lightly on the railing, knuckles white with tension. Beside him, Yuna monitored sensor readings, her voice steady as she relayed updates. "They're within range," she announced finally. "Orders?" Hyung-soo took a deep breath and gave the command. "Engage!" The battle began with a deafening roar. Cannons fired, beams of energy sliced through space, and explosions lit up the darkness like fireworks. Human ships moved with unmatched speed and agility, weaving between the larger, slower vessels of the coalition. Advanced targeting systems locked onto weak points, delivering crippling blows with precision. Small strike teams led by Jun-ho darted between enemy formations, disabling critical systems and sowing confusion. For a time, it seemed as though humanity might hold its own. Wave after wave of attacks pushed back the coalition forces, forcing them to retreat temporarily. Cheers erupted on the bridges of human ships as pilots celebrated each victory. But the tide soon began to turn. The sheer size of the coalition fleet overwhelmed even humanity's most advanced strategies. Ships fell one by one, their crews lost to the void. Casualties mounted and hope started to fade. It was then that reinforcements arrived. Ships from the neutral worlds Ji-un had convinced to join humanity's cause emerged from hyperspace, catching the coalition off guard. Their arrival tipped the scales, scattering the enemy forces and forcing them into retreat. Exhausted but victorious, humanity claimed its second hard-fought triumph. As the dust settled, Admiral Hyung-soo allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. The cost had been high, too high, but the galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They had proven themselves capable of standing toe-to-toe with even the mightiest empires. And though the war was far from over, one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. In the aftermath, Ji-un returned to the Galactic Council, her head held high. She addressed the assembly, her voice calm but resolute. "You misjudged us," she said, meeting the gaze of every delegate. "You thought we were weak. You thought we were alone. But you were wrong. Humanity does not bow to tyranny. Together we will build a better future, or you can continue to oppose us. The choice is yours." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Slowly, reluctantly, some delegates began to nod. Others remained, silent, their expressions unreadable. But one thing was clear: humanity had earned their respect, if only for now. The galaxy was in turmoil. Humanity's unexpected victories had shaken the foundations of interstellar politics. No longer could the older, more powerful species dismiss Earth as a minor player. The destruction of the Calith patrol fleet and the subsequent defeat of the Coalition Armada proved that humans were not to be underestimated. But while these victories earned humanity a newfound respect, they also sowed seeds of fear and resentment among their enemies. On Earth, celebrations were muted. The battles had been costly, not just in terms of resources but in lives lost. Families mourned loved ones who would never return, and pilots and engineers struggled with the weight of what they had endured. Admiral Hyung-soo knew better than anyone that this was no time for rest. Though humanity had won 2 significant engagements, the war was far from over. The empires that sought to crush them were regrouping, planning their next move. And when they struck again, it would likely be with even greater force. Hyung-soo stood on the bridge of the Celestial Dawn, staring at the star charts projected onto the main screen. His mind raced with possibilities. If humanity was to survive, they needed more than just superior ships and advanced technology. They needed allies, beings willing to stand alongside them against the overwhelming might of the coalition. He turned to Captain Yuna, his trusted second-in-command, who was reviewing reports from the recent battle. "We've made progress," Hyung-soo said, his voice low. "But we can't face them alone forever. Ji-un is doing her part, but we need more support." Yuna nodded. She understood the gravity of the situation. Humanity's secret armada had given them an edge, but sheer numbers still favored their enemies. Even with the reinforcements provided by Chancellor Min Seok and other neutral worlds, they were outnumbered. Every ship, every soldier, and every ally mattered. Meanwhile, Ji-un continued her diplomatic efforts, traveling between neutral worlds in search of new partnerships. Her journey took her to places few humans had ever seen. Planets with skies painted in hues of purple and gold, cities built into towering cliffs, and oceans glowing faintly under twin suns. Each world presented its own challenges. Some leaders were hesitant to commit, fearing retaliation from the larger empires if they sided with humanity. Others demanded assurances that humanity could protect them if war came to their borders. One such leader was Governor Soo-jin, ruler of a small but strategically important colony called Lyria 9. Lyria 9 sat at the crossroads of several trade routes, making it a valuable asset for any empire seeking to expand its influence. When Ji-un arrived, she found Soo-jin surrounded by advisors, all arguing about whether to join humanity's cause or remain neutral. Ji-un approached the governor with respect, bowing slightly before speaking. "Governor Soo-jin," she began, "I understand your concerns. The risks are real, but consider this. If we fall, who will stand between you and those who seek to dominate you? Humanity fights not just for ourselves, but for all who value freedom. Su-jin studied Ji-un carefully, her expression thoughtful. After a long silence, she dismissed her advisors, leaving the two women alone. You speak boldly, Su-jin said finally. But bold words won't save us. What can you offer beyond promises? Ji-un smiled faintly. We offer strength and unity. Our ships guard your borders. Our soldiers fight beside yours. Together we are stronger than any empire that seeks to divide us. After hours of negotiation, Su-jin agreed to lend her support. Ships from Lyria 9 joined humanity's growing alliance, bolstering their numbers further. More importantly, her decision inspired neighboring colonies to reconsider their neutrality. Slowly but surely, humanity's coalition expanded, drawing in beings who shared their vision of a galaxy free from tyranny. Back aboard the Celestial Dawn, Admiral Hyung-soo received updates on the growing alliance with cautious optimism. While the influx of ships and supplies was welcome, he knew that true victory depended on more than raw numbers. Strategy, timing, and morale would determine the outcome of the next battle. He called Lieutenant Junho to the bridge, asking him to analyze potential weak points in the coalition's defenses. Junho spent days poring over data, running simulations, and consulting with other tacticians. Finally, he presented his findings to Hyung-soo. Their supply lines are stretched thin, Junho explained, pointing to a map of enemy-controlled space. If we target key resource depots, we can disrupt their operations and buy ourselves time to prepare for a larger engagement. Hyung-soo considered the plan carefully. It was risky. Attacking deep within enemy territory would leave their forces exposed, but it offered a chance to weaken the coalition significantly. After weighing the pros and cons, he gave the order. A small strike team, led by Junho himself, set out on a dangerous mission to sabotage critical supply hubs. The operation was fraught with peril. Junho's team faced constant threats, from patrols sent to intercept them to automated defense systems guarding the depots. But their training and ingenuity paid off. Using stealth technology developed by Earth's finest engineers, they slipped past enemy sensors undetected. Once inside, they planted explosives with precision, ensuring maximum damage while minimizing collateral casualties. As the first depot exploded in a brilliant flash of light, chaos erupted across the coalition's ranks. Supply shortages forced them to delay planned offensives, giving humanity precious time to fortify their defenses. News of the successful raid spread quickly, boosting morale among human forces. Pilots cheered during briefings, and engineers worked with renewed vigor, knowing their efforts were making a difference. But the coalition wasn't idle. Lord Valen, furious at the setbacks, vowed to crush humanity once and for all. He summoned his top commanders to devise a new strategy. Enough games, he snarled, slamming his fist on the table. We hit them where it hurts, their heart, Earth itself. The idea sent shockwaves through the council chambers. Attacking Earth directly was a bold move, one that carried enormous risk. But Valen insisted it was the only way to end the conflict decisively. With Earth destroyed, humanity's resistance would crumble. Reluctantly, the coalition agreed to launch a massive assault on humanity's homeworld. When intelligence reached Admiral Hyung-soo, his blood ran cold. Earth was humanity's greatest weakness, a densely populated planet with limited defenses compared to their colonies. If the coalition succeeded, billions would die, and humanity's future would be extinguished. There was no room for error. Every available ship, every soldier, and every resource had to be mobilized to defend Earth. Hyung-soo addressed his fleet personally, speaking over a secure channel that connected every vessel. This is it, he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. They're coming for our home, for our families, for everything we hold dear. We cannot let them win. Stand firm. Fight with everything you have. Together we will protect Earth. The response was immediate. Crews worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming battle. Engineers reinforced shields, loaded weapons, and performed final checks on every system. Pilots rehearsed maneuvers, honing their skills until they could execute them flawlessly. Civilians back on Earth did their part too, evacuating vulnerable areas and preparing shelters for the worst-case scenario. As the coalition fleet approached Earth, the atmosphere aboard the Celestial Dawn was tense. Sensors showed thousands of ships, each bristling with weapons capable of leveling entire cities. It was a terrifying sight. even for seasoned veterans like Yuna and Junho. Yet despite the overwhelming odds, there was no trace of surrender in their eyes. They had come too far to give up now. The battle began with a deafening roar. Coalition ships unleashed devastating barrages, targeting Earth's orbital defenses and attempting to break through to the surface. Human vessels countered with equal ferocity, forming protective barriers around the planet and launching counterattacks. Advanced targeting systems locked onto enemy weak points, delivering precise blows that crippled dozens of ships. Small strike teams darted between formations, disabling critical systems and creating openings for larger vessels to exploit. For hours, the battle raged on, neither side gaining a decisive advantage. Explosions lit up the sky, casting eerie shadows across Earth's surface. Pilots shouted orders, their voices hoarse from shouting over the din of combat. Engineers scrambled to repair damaged systems, working miracles under impossible conditions. Soldiers fought with everything they had, driven by the knowledge that failure meant extinction. Then, just as hope seemed lost, reinforcements arrived. Ships from allied worlds emerged from hyperspace, catching the coalition off guard. Their arrival turned the tide, scattering enemy forces and forcing them into retreat. Cheers erupted across the fleet as humanity claimed another hard-fought victory. In the aftermath, Admiral Hyung-soo allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The cost had been immense, ships destroyed, lives lost, but Earth was safe. Humanity had proven once again that they would not go down without a fight. And though the war was far from over, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Ji-eun watched the battle unfold from a secure location on Earth, her heart pounding with every update. When word came that the coalition had been defeated, tears streamed down her face, not just from relief but from pride. Humanity had stood together. The galaxy was holding its breath. Humanity's repeated victories had shifted the balance of power in ways no one could have predicted. The destruction of the Kalith patrol fleet, the defeat of the coalition Armada, and the defense of Earth itself had proven that humans were not to be underestimated. Yet these triumphs came at a heavy cost. Ships lay in ruins, soldiers mourned their fallen comrades, and civilians struggled to rebuild lives shattered by war. Despite the challenges, humanity stood united, determined to protect its place among the stars. Admiral Hyung-soo knew the fight was far from over. The coalition, though weakened, still posed a significant threat. Their resources were vast, their resolve unshaken. Lord Valen, leader of the Kalith Dominion, seethed with rage over his losses but refused to admit defeat. Instead, he rallied his allies, vowing to crush humanity once and for all. Rumors spread of a massive new fleet being assembled, a force so large it would dwarf even the combined strength of humanity and its allies. On board the Celestial Dawn, Hyung-soo studied intelligence reports with growing concern. The coalition's movement suggested they were planning another offensive, but their target remained unclear. Could they strike Earth again? Or would they aim for one of humanity's outer colonies, hoping to cut off supply lines and isolate them? Whatever their plan, Hyung-soo knew humanity needed to act quickly. Time was running out. He turned to Captain Yuna, who stood nearby reviewing sensor data. "We need to anticipate their next move," Hyung-soo said, his voice firm yet calm. "If we wait for them to attack, we'll be playing into their hands." Yuna nodded, her expression grim. She understood the stakes. Humanity's survival depended on staying one step ahead of their enemies. Together they convened a meeting with key commanders, including Lieutenant Junho, whose tactical brilliance had already turned the tide in several battles. The team pored over star charts, analyzed enemy patterns, and debated possible strategies. Junho proposed a bold idea: a preemptive strike against the coalition's shipyards. These facilities were critical to their war effort, producing vessels and supplies at an alarming rate. If humanity could destroy or disable them, it would cripple the coalition's ability to launch further attacks. However, the mission carried enormous risks. The shipyards were heavily guarded, located deep within enemy territory, and any attempt to reach them would leave humanity's forces dangerously exposed. After much deliberation, Hyung-soo gave the order. A small elite strike team would infiltrate the shipyards, planting explosives designed to cause maximum damage. Junho volunteered to lead the mission, knowing full well the dangers involved. His decision earned him both respect and concern from his fellow officers, but there was no time for hesitation. Every second counted. As preparations got underway, Ji-eun worked tirelessly to strengthen humanity's alliances. Her diplomatic efforts had already secured vital support from neutral worlds, but maintaining those relationships required constant attention. She traveled between planets, meeting with leaders and addressing their concerns. Some feared retaliation if they continued to side with humanity, while others worried about the long-term consequences of the conflict. Ji-un listened patiently, offering reassurances and reminding them of the shared values that bound them together. One such leader was Chancellor Misjudged, whose decision to join humanity's cause had been instrumental in turning the tide of the war. When Ji-un arrived at his world, she found him surrounded by advisors, debating whether to increase their commitment to the fight. Misjudged greeted her warmly, though his expression betrayed the weight of his responsibilities. "Ji-un," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "Tell me honestly, are we making a difference or are we simply delaying the inevitable?" Ji-un met his gaze, her voice steady. "Every ship you send, every soldier you commit, it makes a difference. Without your support, we wouldn't have survived this long. But I won't lie to you. This war will test us all. What matters is how we respond. Will we stand together, or will we let fear divide us?" Misjudged considered her words carefully. After a long pause, he nodded. "Very well. We will continue to support you, not because we believe victory is certain, but because we cannot allow tyranny to prevail." With Misjudged's renewed pledge, Ji-un returned to Earth, where she briefed Admiral Hyung-soo on the latest developments. The news bolstered morale aboard the Celestial Dawn, reinforcing the sense of unity that had sustained humanity through countless trials. Pilots trained harder, engineers worked longer hours, and civilians rallied behind the war effort, determined to do their part. Meanwhile, Junho and his team prepared for their perilous mission. Using cloaking technology developed by Earth's finest scientists, they slipped past enemy patrols undetected, navigating treacherous asteroid fields and avoiding detection at every turn. As they approached the shipyards, tension mounted. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and the entire operation would fail. The infiltration itself was a masterpiece of precision and teamwork. Junho's team split into smaller units, each tasked with disabling specific sections of the facility. Engineers sabotaged assembly lines, technicians planted explosives in strategic locations, and pilots kept watch for incoming threats. Despite the chaos erupting around them, they moved with practiced efficiency, completing their objectives ahead of schedule. When the charges detonated, the explosion was catastrophic. Massive fireballs engulfed the shipyards, sending shockwaves rippling through space. Dozens of partially constructed ships disintegrated, along with stockpiles of weapons and supplies. The loss dealt a severe blow to the Coalition's war machine, forcing them to delay their planned offensive indefinitely. News of the successful raid reached Admiral Hyung-soo just as the Coalition fleet began mobilizing for what many believed would be the final battle. Morale soared across humanity's ranks, bolstered by the knowledge that they had struck a decisive blow. Pilots cheered during briefings, and engineers celebrated with impromptu gatherings, sharing stories of resilience and courage. But Hyung-soo remained cautious. While the destruction of the shipyards was a major victory, it did not guarantee peace. The Coalition still outnumbered humanity significantly, and their leaders were unlikely to surrender without a fight. He called his commanders together, issuing orders to prepare for the coming confrontation. The stage was set for a clash unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity's Armada gathered near the edge of their territory, forming a defensive line designed to repel any invasion. Ships bristled with weapons, engines hummed with anticipation, and crews waited anxiously for the signal to engage. Among them, Lieutenant Junho stood ready, his mind focused on the task ahead. When the Coalition fleet finally appeared, it stretched across the horizon like a storm cloud blotting out the stars. Thousands of ships advanced in perfect formation, their weapons primed for destruction. It was a sight that would have struck fear into even the bravest hearts. Yet, aboard the Celestial Dawn, there was no trace of doubt. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, and emerged victorious. Hyung-soo gave the order to engage, and the battle began with a deafening roar. Cannons fired, beams of energy sliced through space, and explosions lit up the darkness like fireworks. Human ships darted between, larger enemy vessels exploiting weaknesses and delivering devastating blows with pinpoint accuracy. Small strike teams led by Junho targeted critical systems, sowing confusion and creating openings for larger ships to exploit. For hours, the battle raged on, neither side gaining a decisive advantage. Explosions echoed across the void, casting eerie shadows on the faces of those who fought. Pilots shouted orders, their voices hoarse from shouting over the din of combat. Engineers scrambled to repair damaged systems, working miracles under impossible conditions. Soldiers fought with everything they had, driven by the knowledge that failure meant extinction. Then, just as hope seemed lost, reinforcements arrived. Ships from allied worlds emerged from hyperspace, catching the coalition off guard. Their arrival tipped the scales, scattering enemy forces and forcing them into retreat. Cheers erupted across the fleet as humanity claimed another hard-fought victory. In the aftermath, Admiral Hyung-soo allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The cost had been immense, ships destroyed, lives lost, but humanity had endured. They had proven once again that they would not go down without a fight. And though the war was far from over, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Ji-un watched the battle unfold from a secure location on Earth, her heart pounding with every update. When word came that the coalition had been defeated, tears streamed down her face, not just from relief but from pride. Humanity had stood together, united in purpose and resolve. They had protected their home, their families, and their future. As the dust settled, Ji-un returned to the Galactic Council, ready to address the assembly once more. This time, however, she spoke not as a representative of a minor species, but as a voice of a people who had earned their place among the stars. Her message was simple yet powerful. You misjudged us. You thought we were weak. But now you know the truth. Humanity does not bow to tyranny. Together, we will build a better future, or you can continue to oppose us. The choice is yours. Her words echoed through the chamber. The galaxy was forever changed. Humanity had risen from obscurity to become a force no one could ignore. The battles they had fought, the sacrifices they had made, and the alliances they had forged had reshaped the balance of power among the stars. Yet, even as the dust settled from their latest victory, Admiral Hyung-soo knew that peace was not guaranteed. The coalition's retreat was only temporary. They would regroup, rearm, and return, stronger than ever. On board the Celestial Dawn, Hyung-soo stood on the bridge staring out at the wreckage left behind by the battle. Ships floated lifelessly in the void, their hulls cracked and scorched. Escape pods drifted aimlessly, some carrying survivors, others empty. It was a grim reminder of the cost of war. Thousands of lives had been lost, both human and alien. Families mourned loved ones who would never return, and entire colonies faced rebuilding after the devastation wrought by the conflict. Yet, amidst the sorrow, there was also pride. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with the mightiest empires. Their secret armada, once hidden in shadow, now commanded respect across the galaxy. Pilots spoke of their comrades' bravery. Engineers marveled at the ingenuity that had saved countless lives, and civilians rallied behind the shared belief that their struggles were not in vain. This was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight for a future where humanity could thrive. Captain Yuna approached Hyung-soo, her expression somber but determined. "Admiral," she said softly, "the crews are exhausted but morale is high. Everyone knows what we're fighting for." Hyung-soo nodded, his gaze still fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. "Good," he replied, "because this isn't over yet. We've won battles, but the war continues. If we let our guard down now, everything we've sacrificed will be for nothing." Yuna agreed. She understood that victory required constant vigilance. The coalition's leaders, though humbled, were far from defeated. Lord Valen of the Kalith Dominion seethed with rage, vowing revenge for every ship lost and every colony destroyed. Other empires within the coalition whispered of new strategies, of ways to isolate humanity and dismantle its fragile alliances. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see if humanity could maintain its momentum, or if it would crumble under pressure. Meanwhile, Ji-un worked tirelessly to solidify humanity's position on the Galactic Council. Her diplomatic efforts had already earned Earth a permanent seat, but securing lasting influence required more than speeches and promises. She traveled between worlds, meeting with leaders and addressing concerns. Some feared retaliation if they continued to support humanity, while others worried about the long-term consequences of aligning themselves with a species so often underestimated. Ji-un listened patiently, offering reassurances and reminding them of the values they shared: freedom, justice, and unity. One such leader was Governor Sujin of Lyria 9, whose decision to join humanity's cause had proven crucial in previous battles. When Ji-un arrived, she found Sujin surrounded by advisors debating whether to increase her commitment to the alliance. Sujin greeted her warmly, though her expression betrayed the weight of her responsibilities. Ji-un, Sujin began, gesturing for her to sit. Tell me honestly, are we winning, or are we simply delaying the inevitable? Ji-un met her gaze, her voice steady and resolute. Every ship you send, every soldier you commit, it makes a difference. Without your support, we wouldn't have survived this long. But I won't lie to you. This war will test us all. What matters is how we respond. Will we stand together, or will we let fear divide us? Sujin considered her words carefully. After a long pause, she nodded. Very well. We will continue to support you. Not because we believe victory is certain, but because we cannot allow tyranny to prevail. With Sujin's renewed pledge, Ji-un returned to Earth, where she briefed Admiral Hyung-soo on the latest developments. The news bolstered morale aboard the Celestial Dawn, reinforcing the sense of unity that had sustained humanity through countless trials. Pilots trained harder, engineers worked longer hours, and civilians rallied behind the war effort, determined to do their part. Back in orbit around Proxima Centauri, humanity's shipyards buzzed with activity. Engineers worked around the clock to repair damaged vessels and construct new ones. Factories churned out weapons, shields, and spare parts at unprecedented rates. Every resource was poured into preparing for the next battle, knowing full well that the coalition would strike again, and soon. Lieutenant Junho played a key role in these preparations. His tactical brilliance had turned the tide in several engagements, earning him widespread respect among the fleet. Now, he focused on refining strategies, running simulations, and analyzing enemy patterns. He knew that humanity's survival depended on staying one step ahead of their enemies. Together with Admiral Hyung-soo and Captain Yuna, he devised plans for defending Earth's borders and protecting vulnerable colonies. When intelligence reports confirmed the coalition's renewed mobilization, tension mounted aboard the Celestial Dawn. Sensors showed thousands of ships gathering near the edge of human-controlled space, each bristling with weapons capable of leveling entire planets. It was a terrifying sight, even for seasoned veterans like Yuna and Junho. Yet despite the overwhelming odds, there was no trace of surrender in their eyes. They had come too far to give up now. As the coalition fleet approached, humanity's forces prepared for what many believed would be the final battle. Ships formed defensive lines, engines hummed with anticipation, and crews waited anxiously for the signal to engage. Among them, Lieutenant Junho stood ready, his mind focused on the task ahead. When the battle began, it was chaos incarnate. Cannons fired, beams of energy sliced through space, and explosions lit up the darkness like fireworks. Human ships darted between larger enemy vessels, exploiting weaknesses and delivering devastating blows with pinpoint accuracy. Small strike teams led by Junho targeted critical systems, sowing confusion and creating openings for larger ships to exploit. For hours, the battle raged on, neither side gaining a decisive advantage. Explosions echoed across the void, casting eerie shadows on the faces of those who fought. Pilots shouted orders, their voices hoarse from shouting over the din of combat. Engineers scrambled to repair damaged systems, working miracles under impossible conditions. Soldiers fought with everything they had, driven by the knowledge that failure meant extinction. Then, just as hope seemed lost, reinforcements arrived. Ships from allied worlds emerged from hyperspace, catching the coalition off guard. Their arrival tipped the scales, scattering enemy forces and forcing them into retreat. Cheers erupted across the fleet as humanity claimed another hard-fought victory. In the aftermath, Admiral Hyung-soo allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The cost had been immense, ships destroyed, lives lost, but humanity had endured. They had proven once again that they would not go down without a fight. And though the war was far from over, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Ji-un watched the battle unfold from a secure location on Earth, her heart pounding with every update. When word came that the coalition had been defeated, tears streamed down her face, not just from relief but from pride. Humanity had stood together, united in purpose and resolve. They had protected their home, their families, and their future. As the dust settled, Ji-un returned to the Galactic Council, ready to address the Assembly once more. This time, however, she spoke not as a representative of a minor species but as a voice of a people who had earned their place among the stars. Her message was simple yet powerful. You misjudged us. You thought we were weak. But now you know the truth. Humanity does not bow to tyranny. Together we will build a better future. or you can continue to oppose us. The choice is yours." Her words echoed through the chamber, silencing critics and earning nods of approval from former adversaries. Slowly, reluctantly, some delegates began to see humanity in a new light. Allies grew stronger, bonds tightened, and hope flickered in the hearts of those who had once doubted. The galaxy had changed, and humanity was at its center. For Admiral Hyung-soo, the road ahead was clear. Humanity had proven itself capable of greatness, but greatness came with responsibility. As he stood on the bridge of the celestial dawn, gazing at the stars, he thought of all those who had sacrificed everything for this moment. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, but now it was time to ensure that place endured. Together they would forge a legacy, a testament to the strength, courage, and unity that defined them. And so, as the galaxy looked on, humanity stepped boldly into its future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.